Shocking signal. Mark Carney dismisses pipeline push, leaving Canadians deeply concerned. Since taking over as Prime Minister following his victory in the April 28, 2025 snap federal election, Mark Carney has attempted to reshape his image from global banker to national builder. Early in his mandate, Carney touted a new legislative initiative, Bill C-5, as a cornerstone of his agenda to fast-track major infrastructure projects. Promoted as the Building Canada Act, the bill was framed as a tool to cut red tape and accelerate the approval of large-scale undertakings, such as interprovincial energy corridors and pipelines. Carney assured Canadians that his government would finally get things built. But months after its passage, the grand rhetoric has failed to match on-the-ground progress, especially on the pipeline front. One of the clearest signs of this disconnect came during Carney's appearance at a national summit with Indigenous leaders. There, rather than commit to specific projects or announce timelines, Carney downshifted expectations. He described Bill C-5 not as an instrument to drive results but as the start of a conversation. He spoke of building partnerships and creating intergenerational prosperity, but stopped short of offering clarity on when or how a new pipeline would be built. His refusal to amend or streamline the Indigenous consultation process, widely viewed as a major bottleneck, left critics and industry stakeholders questioning whether any actual construction would happen under his leadership. This change in tone didn't go unnoticed. Several First Nations leaders left the summit frustrated, labeling the meeting insufficient and voicing skepticism about the government's intentions. Despite his promises, Carney failed to present concrete commitments. Instead, he reiterated vague pledges about cooperation and process. Many chiefs expressed concern that the government was, once again, relying on symbolism over substance. For Canadians watching closely, the summit became symbolic of a broader problem. While Carney markets ambition, the machinery of government remains slow and cautious. What's particularly troubling to many Canadians is that Carney's government already possesses the tools needed to act decisively. Even before Bill C-5, Cabinet had the power to fast-track projects and suspend specific regulatory barriers. The act was marketed as a game-changer, but in practice, it merely formalized what was already possible. Now, with the law in place and the authority granted, the public expected action. Instead, they're being told that Bill C-5 is simply the beginning of a process, raising questions about whether Carney ever intended to push through projects like pipelines or was merely trying to win political points. Meanwhile, the pipeline debate has reignited long-standing tensions over Indigenous rights, environmental regulation, and Canada's economic direction. Carney's emphasis on consultation aligns with his progressive base, but alienates voters who see national development as a pressing need. The perception that Indigenous consultation processes can indefinitely delay infrastructure projects fuels frustrations, especially among Canadians concerned about rising energy prices, investor uncertainty, and declining global competitiveness. Some argue that the current system gives too much authority to band councils, which may not always represent the broader will of Indigenous people who desire economic opportunities. At the heart of the controversy is a growing fear that Canada's political system is incapable of building large-scale infrastructure in the national interest. The promise of Carney's leadership was that he would cut through political gridlock using his economic expertise and international experience. Yet what Canadians are seeing is more of the same: endless conversations, regulatory entanglements, and a political class hesitant to confront difficult stakeholders. Critics say Carney's unwillingness to take a firm stand on pipelines reflects a broader fear of alienating progressive allies and activist groups. Even provincial premiers who have expressed support for new pipelines, such as Manitoba's Wab Kinew, have done so with caution. While Kinew has spoken publicly about the potential of a pipeline to Hudson Bay, his government has not moved forward with any formal proposals. In fact, no province has clearly stepped forward to partner with the federal government on energy corridors. That hesitancy suggests a lack of confidence in Ottawa's follow-through and perhaps a deeper recognition that without real structural reform, Bill C-5 will remain symbolic. Carney's supporters argue that his caution is justified. They say Canada has a long history of ignoring Indigenous rights and that any major project must be pursued through careful engagement and reconciliation. To them, Carney's language about partnerships and prosperity signals a more humane approach to infrastructure, one that doesn't bulldoze over communities. But critics counter that consultation has become a tool of indefinite delay, manipulated by political actors who don't want these projects built in the first place. The truth may lie somewhere in the middle, but one thing is clear: pipelines aren't getting built. In communities reliant on resource development, frustration is mounting. Workers in Alberta and Saskatchewan who once hoped Carney would deliver tangible change are now watching timelines slip away. Pipeline construction, even under optimal conditions, takes years. With no project announced, approved, or even seriously championed by the Prime Minister, industry insiders estimate that no new pipeline could realistically begin construction before 2028, let alone be completed before the next federal election. Carney's window for action is rapidly closing. For now, Bill C-5 stands as a political gamble. It gave the Liberals a talking point during the spring election, helped them claim a willingness to govern pragmatically, and earn temporary Conservative support. But with the power now squarely in the hands of the Carney cabinet, every delay, every non-decision, and every missed opportunity becomes their burden to bear. Voters may soon ask whether the act was ever about getting things done, or simply about shifting blame when things didn't happen. The political cost could be significant. Carney campaigned on transforming the way Canada builds infrastructure, promising to restore public faith in government by delivering results. If that transformation ends in more stalling and platitudes, the perception of his leadership will shift. What was once billed as efficient and competent could be seen as paralyzed and performative. In an era of rising global competition, economic pressure, and increasing domestic polarization, Canadians are looking for leadership that doesn't just talk about the future, but builds it. As of now, there is little indication that a meaningful pipeline project will emerge from the current parliament. Despite legislative tools and nominal provincial support, Carney appears unwilling, or politically unable, to take decisive action. For a country in desperate need of energy security and economic growth, the absence of forward momentum sends a troubling message. Canadians are growing impatient, and unless the government delivers, Bill C-5 may go down as yet another grand gesture that failed to live up to its promise.